Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to UPKICK MMA, episode 226. I am Brendan. All right, 1FC, Fight Night 7, Lineker versus Andrade 2. Okay, we're going to cover the main card here. We're going to cover the main event, go over fight by fight, round by round, break them all down, go over, spin it around, I don't know, go over the scorecards on some of them. Not that they expose the scorecards, but we're going to go over the decisions. We're going to cover all that stuff here. Real quick, before we get started, if you like podcasts about MMA, you like MMA, if you like Bellator, 1FC, UFC, I cover all them here. 2 or 3 videos every single week, covering them, breaking them down, talking about decisions. Let's get started. All right, John Lineker taking on Fabricio Andrade 2. Now, the first fight, if you remember, ended with a cup kick. Not up kick, cup kick. So the fight ended because Lineker got kneed, or it might have been a knee. I think it was actually a knee to his cup that was so hard it snapped his cup in half. And listen, let's just go over it real quick. My feelings on that first fight. Andrade was winning. Absolutely. Lineker was going to lose if that fight continued to play out the way it was going to. He might have even gotten finished. It was most likely going to be finished based off how it was playing out. Here's the problem I have with the narrative. Andrade was saying, oh, he took the easy way out. Oh, he did this. Oh, he did this. Listen, if you are kicked in the nuts so hard that your cup breaks, you should have everyone's permission to call it quits and just regroup and start over. That's effectively getting poked in the eye and your eyeball like popping out of the socket slightly. I think you can get a redo on that one, all right? So, first of all, I don't like that narrative. Second of all, the commentary team would not acknowledge any of the good things Lineker was doing. All they would talk, they for sure wanted to push the narrative that Andrade was going to win, that Andrade is the future, Andrade this, Andrade that. He has all the hype, and he won this fight legitimately. Okay, Lineker's corner ended up throwing in the towel in between the 4th and the 5th round. We'll talk about that. And we'll get it down. I just want to state this up front. I am, I wouldn't say a Lineker fan. I'm just familiar with Lineker because he fought in the UFC. And at the time, I wasn't watching one. I don't know if one was around when I first started watching Lineker to begin with. But I remember him from the UFC. I know his accolades, his attributes, and his abilities from watching him in the UFC, competing against UFC fighters. Because of that, I don't know if you call it an affinity or a gravitation or whatever. I just see him as more, let's put it this way. I think he is more than what they're giving him credit for in these past 2 fights. Now, in the past, when he's just outright knocked people out and they were all on board with it, I don't know if they're necessarily trying to push the narrative. They were trying to get somebody else to beat him. But in this scenario, absolutely that's what they were doing. In the first fight, it kind of played out the way they wanted to, so they didn't have to not bend the truth, but avoid talking about what was going on. Here, maybe we can watch some highlights from this fight. Hopefully, I don't get pulled for this one. Like,
that's it. He's all on steady legs. He's hurt.
And he did get hurt in the fight. I will admit that. He definitely did get hurt. But that's the thing. So, he did get hurt like at the end of that round, that was the first round, I believe. Just because you get hurt in one round doesn't mean the fight's over. It's not. And they were not pushing a narrative, but they were repeating that he got saved by the bell. He got saved by the bell. They said it probably 2 or 3 times between rounds, and they brought it up later. So this first round started out with Lineker taking the center and pressuring really well. Lineker got a momentary takedown. Then they got back up, and he threw him back down. Lineker landed some hooks in the corner. He hurt Andrade momentarily. It was actually the best moment in the fight, in that round, up until the very end. Lineker got another takedown. He landed a few short shots, and then later on, this was discounted because he didn't hold him down there. I don't know if it was Rich Franklin who was talking about it, but one of them was saying that those takedowns don't mean anything because he didn't maintain control. I understand that he wasn't down for very long, but doing damage well after you took the guy down, that's kind of the point. And he did damage, and, Andrade got back up, but the damage was already done. So whether you do the damage while it's standing or you get the takedown and do the damage, you're still doing damage. Lineker landed a high left hook. Andrade was really landing these knees. So every time Lineker would move in, Andrade would throw those knees up. He's a much bigger, much taller guy. I'm sure he cuts a ton of weight to make it down here to bantamweight. And, if he can do that, that's awesome. There's just a huge size discrepancy. And Lineker landed that that high left hook throughout the entire fight. So at the end of this first round, that's what you guys saw, those highlights. Lineker actually got wobbled, and when he was wobbled, at the end of the last 15 seconds, he was still throwing back, but clearly he was on shaky ground, right? He was very close to being finished, and had the round extended, he could have lost the fight. But I cannot stand that narrative. If you ever hear me doing it, you're more than welcome to call me out for it, because I hate when other people do it, and I sure as hell hope I don't do it. I've actually spoken to this before. When people mention that, had the fight gone on or had that round gone on for another 10 seconds, stop. You can stop talking right there, because whatever you're about to say doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. The rounds are what they are. 5 minutes, 3 minutes in the cases of kickboxing or some other kickboxing or Muay Thai that we're going to talk about later here today. Also, if you're looking for a specific fight on the card, I have the timestamps down below. So if you find yourself trying to make an argument that a fighter was going to win if they had more time, or had the fight gone longer, don't just stop. Just stop your thought process. And this isn't a criticism. It's not your fault if you think that way. It's natural for a human to continue in their head, right? To predict the future. That's how we do most things. We work on predictions in our brain, right? We expect the sun to come up the next day. Therefore, when we go to sleep, we know that, there's going to be a day tomorrow, so I can continue living, right? We expect that to happen. So we live on expectations. We naturally try to predict the future in our brain. There's a continuance. There's an expectation of what comes next. And when there is an abrupt end during a, exciting, what you would call finale to that round, you naturally want to think what if that went forward? But no, guys, if the round was 6 minutes long, maybe that sequence starts at 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? The 5-minute parameter is what gives you the thought of, if he only had more time, or if there was only more time. You don't know that. You don't. That there's no way to tell. If there was no rounds, clearly he would have won. No, because they knew going in that the rounds are 5 minutes. He knew with 10 seconds left, or he knew probably from his corner telling him, hey, there's 20 seconds left. Hey, there's 30 seconds left. Maybe that's why he turned it up. I would argue that he definitely did that, because I saw it multiple times in the following rounds. It's a great strategy, and he pulled it off very well. So, no, that's just not true. If there was only 10 more seconds, well, then he would have started 10 seconds later, because his corner's telling him how much time is left. That's why he turned it up. It's a strategy a lot of fighters employ. A lot of teams employ that strategy of turning it up at the last 30 seconds, knowing that if I myself, no. So if I get put in danger myself, that's okay. I can survive, because there's only 30 seconds left. I'm likely to survive this. So I'm going to throw it all out there. I'm going to take more risks, right? But I'm going to search for that finish too. So that's what he was doing near the end of the round, and that's what allowed him to almost get the finish. And I agree. If all the things were being equal and they decided for some random fucking reason, we're just going to extend this round for 10 seconds, have at it, then yes, he would have won. But only in that stupid scenario that I just said. Okay, continuing. So I had Andrade up in this first round. Obviously, I think they were. I think they were giving him more based off of ONE FC's scoring criteria. So they score the fight as a whole. Okay, there are still rounds, but the rounds aren't scored in comparison to other or they're not given an ultimate score, right? You don't add up the points from each round. It's the fight judged as a whole. And because of that, how much more damage did Andrade do in that first round? I would argue he did more damage, but not so significant. It wasn't a one-sided beatdown, okay? Like, I would argue that first round wouldn't even have been a 10-8 in the 10-point must system. And I think a lot of people would agree with me there. Not that necessarily makes me right, but I think that's pretty normal. Based off our current scoring criteria, that probably wouldn't have been a 10-8, right? So it wasn't a complete blowout. But I had him up. Second round here. Lineker came out hard. He came out hot, landing hard hooks upstairs and to the body. Lineker able to get the takedown. He landed some damage again and then got, of course, they talked it down like it didn't mean anything. Lineker did a good job landing a kick to the lead leg. He started landing that low kick. He started in the first round, but he really kept it up throughout the entire fight. He did a great job. He looked so much better, so much more well-prepared for this fight, and it was a close contest until the end, I promise you. By the way, if you did not watch this card and you have an Amazon Prime membership, I implore you, at least watch the main event. I do recommend most, if not all of these fights. I'll talk about it as we go through, but for sure the main event is worth a watch. If you are an MMA fan and you somehow tuned into this just to hear the results, I implore you, I really do, go watch this fight. You owe it to yourself. It was excellent. It was as good as anything you would see in the UFC or Bellator or anywhere else. ONE FC has very competitive, very high level and mixed martial arts. And they put on a good show. The presentation's excellent. And they're biased, just like everyone else. So he did a really good job landing low kicks. Andrade stuck to that jab. He has a stiff jab that was he was pelting Lineker the entire time, just like he did in that first fight. He started to blow up the right eye of Lineker, the lead eye with that jab, man. Just pop, 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 super snappy, and was stiff. Dude, great jab. Lineker was able to close the distance. So after 2 rounds, the fight was pretty close overall, right? I still give the edge to Andrade because that first round, the way he ended it, he did so much more damage in the end of that first round that there was a large gap that Lineker had to close. He was closing it at the end of the second. I felt like Lineker did do more damage in this round. So going into the third round, I had it closer than I did at the end of the first, but still for Andrade. Lineker started the third round landing really well again. He starts these rounds fresh. He looks great. He throws hooks, hard low hooks. He's throwing leg kicks. He's throwing hooks to the body. He's going upstairs with that big looping left hook to finish his combos. And he landed so well, and he's landing so much. Lineker was landing the hard shots down the stretch instead of just trading jabs like he did earlier. Earlier in this round, he went for a takedown. He ends up on his back with 7 seconds left. So that didn't mean anything because Andrade didn't. It's not that position doesn't mean anything, but in terms of adding damage or adding to Andrade's round, that barely has any effect on it for me. And I argue that by any judging scoring criteria, I don't think that really means much. Lineker, after 3 rounds, I had him working his way into the lead. So I had him pulling ahead of Andrade in terms of total damage. Overall, I had him just a little bit ahead. Not by a lot. This was very competitive. It was extremely close. Oh, yeah, and in between the rounds here, the replay from the third round is literally showing Lineker landing shots, and they're talking about how Andrade is avoiding damage and shit. And he's talking about, like, look at Andrade, land that shot. And then immediately afterward, Lineker lands a big left hook. It's like they teed up the highlights from that round to show that Lineker had won, and then the commentary team's like, no, like, we're not talking about that. We're going to keep pushing this fucking narrative. That's when it hit home for me real hard that it becomes extremely obvious when a narrative is being pushed, when during highlights from a round, you see one thing, and they see it too, but they refuse to acknowledge what's going on. Not that the highlights necessarily have to represent the round in total. The totality of a round cannot be summed up necessarily for every fight. or every round by 2 snippets or 3 snippets of that round. Okay, I understand that, but they weren't even. They were okay. So they did a little bit, but they barely acknowledged Lineker landing anything in those. They're all they wanted to talk about. They're like, oh look, Andrade lands that left hand, and then oh yeah, and of course Lineker did land that, but it didn't mean anything. Like, dude, shut the fuck up. Big right hand from Lineker. Andrade was still landing the jab in this 4th round. Lineker took a few big shots, and then he would plant, chase him down, landing great hooks, and Andrade retreats. So Andrade started to add some more after the jab, landing great low kicks and knees to the ends of them. He started to add combinations together, put combinations together. Andrade ended the round landing a great sequence and pulling back out for damage. I had him back out in front. I had Andrade at the end of this 4th round. I had him winning the fight. Okay? So for all my bias that I stated up front and my familiarity, the gravitation towards Lineker, I had Andrade winning this fight after the 4th round. So I'm not in disagreement with giving him it because so it ended between rounds, which I thought was kind of dumb, but then I found out his corner did it. I'm like, oh, okay. So then, okay, remember what I just said earlier about how you can't really base what you were seeing, like just because what you saw doesn't mean you know what's going to happen in the next 7 seconds or if you added 10 seconds to a round. Okay, so in this, the commentary team was talking about how the 5th round would have ended, or Andrade would have ended it in the 5th round, or oh yeah, there's no way I see Lineker coming back from that. Like, dude, you were talking shit after the 1st round. The same thing they were saying at the end of the 4th round, or after the fight was called off, was exactly what they were saying in between rounds 1 and 2. They're talking about how, man, Lineker he took all that damage, and though Andrade's really turning it on now. And then Lineker proceeds to win the next 2 rounds. So your words hold no weight anymore when it comes to this fight. When you talk like that, they just don't. I can't take you serious. Because you didn't even acknowledge it. Like, you said that, oh, this was going to happen, and then because you said it or because you had a narrative to push, you just kept saying the same shit the entire fight, not acknowledging the fact that Lineker not only survived, but was pulling back ahead by the end of the 3rd round. And at the end of the 4th round, was he losing again? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that like, he's recovered between every other round. Why wouldn't he recover after the 4th? So the corner threw in the towel. There's nothing for me to judge here. They know their fighter best. I have no judgment in this. If Lineker comes out and says, "Oh, hey, I wish they wouldn't have thrown in the towel," then so be it. But far be it for me to pass judgment on a corner throwing in a towel. I think if your corner throws in the towel, it was probably warranted, unless there's some crazy shenanigans going on. That was a really good fight for Andrade. Let's real quick look at the rankings here. This is obviously not the UFC rankings. This is the MMA world rankings from rankingsmma.com. Okay. Not that this is the end all be all, but it's just something to look at, right? Even if it's somebody's opinion, it kind of falls in line. So, because you can even see here, like in the top 10, you got Sergio Pettis, who fights for Bellator. You've got Rafian Stotts at 11. So there are some fighters in here that are not in the UFC in the top 15. Right, so not every top 15 UFC fighter is in the top 15 here. Before this fight, John Lineker was at 17, so I expect him to drop down, and I expect Andrade to move up. Wow, where the heck is he? Is he even listed? That doesn't make any sense. Is he not repping Brazil? Anyway, Andrade had a great fight. I think, like I said, I thought he was winning after 4, and had the fight continued, I would have bet that he would have been able to continue that. I don't know if he was going to be able to finish it in the 5th round, but I did see that he was possibly, that he could have won that 5th round, similar to how he won the 4th, maybe even with a little bit more pressure. Lineker could have come out hot like he had in every other round, and held him off and then gone to a close decision. But no, that doesn't matter. None of that matters. The fight was called off, and good fight for Andrade. Excellent win for him. Let's move it on, shall we? Tawanchai Saenchai versus Jamal Yusupov. We don't have to talk about this one very long. In fact, I could probably just show you the highlight and you'll get a good grasp of what happened here. Yeah. And that's it. 40 seconds into the fight. That's it, guys. Just that left kick, man. Saenchai went to the legs and the body with the kicks early, and then Saenchai landed that left kick to the leg of Jamal. He stopped moving. The fight is over somehow. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if it has come out since then that the leg was broken or that the knee was broken. Maybe it twisted or popped something in his leg or knee. All of that is a possibility. I've seen Saenchai's. I've seen his highlights, and I know he's mentioned by Joe Rogan all the time. He's one of the 3 fighters that he mentions, right? The Saenchai or Rod Tang. So it's interesting to see how hard he can kick, but there was nothing about that kick that said, I mean, the way that the commentary team was making it out to be like, that's what Saenchai's kicks can do. And it's fine. Like, they're playing it up, and, they got to, it happens, so you got to say something about it. But none of them said, well, that's weird. Because that was my first thought. I don't know if that was your thought when you watched this, but I was like, that's weird. I'm not saying like he threw it or anything. I just want to know more about what happened, not like, oh, that's what happens when you leg kick. I've seen a lot of hard leg kicks, and it's not usually how they go after one hard leg kick like that, or maybe 2. Anyway, moving on here. Martin Nguyen versus Leonardo Casotti. Casotti? Yeah. So, they traded leg kicks to start this fight, as you do. This is mixed martial arts, so you trade kicks. Oh, that last one was Muay Thai, by the way. Casotti was swinging really wide, but the smaller shots that he was throwing were the ones that were landing. And then Nguyen lands a right hand that staggers Casotti and follows up with some more shots as Casotti attempted a takedown. Casotti was behind on damage after that first round for sure. All right, he really needed a big second round to catch up. Then Nguyen ends up landing that right hand again in that second round. He's landing really hard low kicks. The damage is all one way through 2 rounds, and I have it for Nguyen so far. And then I wonder if these guys rank at featherweight. We shall look in a minute at the featherweights. So in the third round here, Nguyen was avoiding the big hooks coming from Casotti, and he was still landing in between, right? So he would avoid, he would back out or dodge some of those large shots, those big swinging, looping shots from Casotti, and then he would land some of his own. Casotti had a better round in this third round because he was landing some more measured shots instead of just swinging away like that. And he's still standing on that front leg somehow, even though he was getting his leg torn apart. And then Nguyen ended up getting a double leg takedown with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left in the fight. And Nguyen ended the round on top, laying down ground and pound. That was 100% his fight. There's nothing. Let's see what they got for the highlight.
Casotti to move forward.
That was that big right hand in that first round. So let's look at the featherweight, shall we? Let's see if they are in here even a little bit. So Nguyen is ranked number 4 in 1FC. And I don't know if he's ranked in the world. I do not think so. Nope, neither one of these guys is ranked in the world, in the top 50. Not that's the end-all, be-all, but, they're not ranked on this, so, which, I think that makes kind of sense. All right, moving on to some submission grappling, which I'm a huge fan of now. Not that I wasn't before, but going to practice now on a regular basis, I can understand what they're saying now and what they're actually going for, what they're trying to do. So, oh, wait, no, this isn't that. Damn it. No, my bad. This is kickboxing. Kickboxing first. That's off Fairtex. Anyway, Saemapetch, Fairtex versus Zhang Shenlong. This was kickboxing. So Zhang was landing well using hooks and had a great jab. Zhang was landing like a great right hand and avoided most of the damage coming his way. Zhang looked great after that first round. I for sure had him up 10-9. So they do not grade this on a whole. They grade it round by round. Fairtex landed a great right hand to start the round. Fairtex was doing a better job avoiding the big hooks coming his way and landing a decent right head kick. Fairtex did a much better better job in the second round. Zhang landed some good shots throughout, but Fairtex was landing way more. I had it like even 19-19 going into the third round here. Then Fairtex started to pull away with this one. He just landed so much more, avoided all the big shots coming back his way, and I had Fairtex winning 29-28. He did win overall, so I agreed with that decision. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Moving on. Echo Ronin, Saputra versus Danny Kingad. This fight was awesome. If you didn't watch these kickboxing fights, I recommend it. I really do. It was it's like the kickboxing and the Muay Thai were fun to watch, so they were actually really good. This was an MMA fight. So Kingad shot in on a single leg and he got a body lock takedown, took the back. Saputra got out without taking much damage, so nothing too big there. Kingad actually reversed the position, got into mount. He didn't do much damage again, and then Kingad ahead, but not by much. Right. So at the end of this first round, he didn't do too much damage. He just had a lot of positional control. Yes, there was some damage when they're on the feet, but that was pretty much even. So I just had Danny up a little bit after this first round. Saputra got a little bit of back control, then he ended up getting reversed and slammed by Kingad. Kingad landed well to the body with a kick and then a hook, and he was throwing a low hook, a huge left hook to the head. He was throwing out nasty combos in this round. Kingad was landing hard hooks after he slips the shots, and he landed a huge spinning elbow this round, rocking Saputra. Just for a moment, Saputra got his wits about him very quick. Kingad was up far ahead at the end of the second round. Saputra would need a finish. In my opinion, he needed a finish or a complete one-sided beatdown in this last round to go his way for Saputra to end up winning this fight. So the end of the third round, Saputra with a front head kick, headlock, and Kingad reversed his way, worked his way to the back, and went for an arm bar. He didn't get it, but it doesn't matter. Kingad won that fight start to finish. I didn't see a single point in that fight where he looked like he was in danger. Saputra is very good, but he just looked like he wasn't on his level on the ground. And when they went to striking, it looked like he was so tired he couldn't move properly, and he was just taking so much damage. So great win for Kingad. Let's see what they have for us here. I'm seeing these. Oh, this is the elbow.
Say this is electrifying in the second.
Oh, that's nasty stuff right there. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and take a guess and say that these two fellas are not in the rankings. All right. So now we will go to the grappling. Okay. So Danielle Kelly versus Ayaka Miura. So if you're a fan of grappling, like submission grappling, like jiu-jitsu and stuff, I'd say give it a watch. Yeah, I'll say give it a watch. It goes the distance, but it's worth watching, I think. There was enough interesting things, especially there were some positions there which are not common, especially in men's grappling. Kelly was the first one to make a move, diving under, trying to sweep and get guard, but Miura defended it really well and ended up getting the body lock takedown of her own, and then she got into guard, into Kelly's guard. Kelly elevated and sweeps, and then she managed to avoid the scarf hold for a little bit, but Ayaka got it back. She held onto that head in that scarf hold position, regained position, and went for a head and arm choke, and she got credit for that submission attempt. Kelly eventually gets the back and then had one hook in and used that to maintain position. Miura used the scarf hold again to defend, and then they are stood up. So Miura is like something else with that scarf hold. She's really tight on it, and she holds onto it like you wouldn't believe. That front headlock position or that side headlock position is crazy. Kelly ended up sweeping from the bottom, getting the mount. She made Miura move and then took the back. Swung both of her feet around, got the hooks in, got the body triangle, and had the back for a while, going for rear naked chokes. Also, something that I thought that wasn't fucking cool, Kelly just like raking her fingers across Miura's face, like digging them into her face. I guess technically that's allowed as long as they're not going to the eyes, but that's kind of weird, man. I don't like that. Like, do it like grabbing someone's face and pulling them a direction, that's one thing, but using your fingers, like, I don't see how that ends well. Because if that person looks a little bit in one direction, your fingers are in their eye and you're doing something illegal. I don't like that. Like, if it's allowed, it's allowed. I just don't like it. I think it's kind of screwed up. I don't like when people mess around with eyes. Anyway, she went for rear naked chokes, making it even to the. I thought it was even as far as like official submission attempts, but Kelly did have longer control and she did have longer submission attempts. You know what I mean? It's like she was in that submission attempt for a longer period of time. So Kelly ends up getting the win. I agree with it. I think she did win. I just didn't understand the exact rules. This is the help.
Squeeze. Kelly get the squeeze. She's got it. It's sunk. It's sunk in.
Time her going for neck cranks and rear naked chokes from the back position like that with the body triangle in. So, crazy. It was so weird watching someone reverse with a scarf hold. She was putting her arm around the head, which is the worst. Like, it was horrible. That's something they teach you not to do, and she's doing it on purpose, and it works really well for her. So that's incredible. As I said, it's worth watching if you're into that kind of stuff, because you don't see that kind of thing anywhere. And there's so many ways that works out poorly. Andre Stoica taking on Franscesko Xhaja. This was kickboxing, and this is how we started the night with the commentary team one-sided here. Both of these guys landed hard kicks to start. They were going low into the body. Stoica was getting ahead on the strikes early, finding his range, and with the hands, he was finding his range and finding the rhythm with his hands first. Okay, he found first upstairs. The jab from Xhaja was the most consistent shot from him, but everything else from Stoica was more damaging. So it was a close round with the heavy shots from Stoica, because even if Xhaja landed some more, Stoica was the one who landed more damage in that first round. So I gave it to him 10-9. We'll talk about the commentary in a second. There's a great double left hook to the body from Stoica. It partially landed, and then a partially landed head kick from him in this round. This second one, it was close, but I still feel like Stoica landed the damage. And then Xhaja just, I thought maybe he pulled ahead with the volume, but the second round was really close. If you go back and watch that and you're like, oh, absolutely Stoica won, or absolutely Xhaja won that round, you're off your rocker. It was very close. You can present to me your argument as to why you think he won, and that's okay. But I was leaning towards Xhaja. But then the way that they were talking at the commentary team about how Stoica was down 2 rounds made me think that there's something fishy going on with the commentary team. I'll explain that in a second. In the last round here, Xhaja started this round with crazy pressure, landing heavy shots, landing combinations. Xhaja took this last round for sure because Stoica looked tired. He was getting picked apart. I had it 29-28 in favor of Xhaja, but with that second round being very, very, very close. Now, the commentary team was talking about this fight like it was one-sided in every round. They were mentioning, like especially Rich Franklin, was saying how he didn't see how Stoica could have won any of the rounds. What were you watching, dude? He said Xhaja was in control of this fight from start to finish. And the only reason this really came up is because there was a split decision. One judge gave it to Stoica. Now, this does not mean that I'm right or that doesn't mean that Rich Franklin's necessarily wrong. But no, it does, because that first round was at least close. If you're gonna say that kind of stuff, you can't outright say like, oh, this is a one-sided fight. Oh, this guy was in control the entire time. There's no way. You can't make these absolute bullshit statements. You can't do that when you have a close fight, because it reduces your credibility. I don't believe you anymore. And that's kind of, like I said, if you've made it this far in the video, please subscribe to the channel if you can put up with this kind of ranting and raving. We're coming to the end here. I'm just bringing it all around, bringing it full circle. So like I said, if you like MMA, you like podcasts about MMA, you like fight breakdowns, you like the incoherent ramblings of some moron, subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. But as I was saying, dude, if this is how I started my night, watching this card, right? With them telling me that my eyes are lying to me. They're like, nah, guy, dude, look at this. Come on. He's destroying the guy. He's punching him in the face and he's not even getting touched. What are you talking about? Okay, Rich Franklin does not sound like that. Don't know why I went. Oh, I know why I went with that accent. From work yesterday. But anyway, and then I'm listening to this and I'm like, what? Am I wrong? I watched this fight twice because of how weird that commentary sounded to me. I stopped, went back, and watched the first round and second round again. Third round, I understand. Don't get it twisted. Third round, absolutely. Xhaja turned it up. He really did. At midway through that second round, he was starting to bring it and turn it on, and Stoica was getting tired. Okay? First round, I still had it for Stoica. I will tell you, when you tell me that it was one-sided and there's no way Stoica can win and there's no way you could give him any of the rounds, and then later on you're saying things, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You clearly have a narrative in your head. You have personal bias that get in the way of objective judgment when possible. We're human beings. You can't be 100% objective. It's impossible. There's some sort of bias you have. Okay? There's some sort of bias that you have, whether you realize it or not. Right? You might see something slightly different than someone else. Just the way it is. But this is how I started my night. That's why I'm saying that. Okay? Because I heard this, and then when we get to the end, they're talking about how good freaking Andrade is, and they're not mentioning anything about Lineker. You're diminishing Andrade's win. Do you realize that? I'm not diminishing it. I thought that was a tough fight. I thought Lineker came out hard. And one of the guys on the commentary and team was at least mentioning it, that he looked better in this fight. One guy was trying to do that. But you're diminishing the guy's win when you're talking about how one-sided it is. Because then it's just an argument that, oh, this guy's clearly not on his level. That Lineker's clearly not on his level. This wasn't a hard fight. Oh, it's because Andrade is not using his footwork and because he's being stupid. No, it's because Lineker's really good. And Andrade still beat him. That elevates the champion. That elevates the fighter. It elevates the win when you talk about how good the guy who lost was. It's similar to like the Vulcan Islam thing. You can't just diminish Islam and make it seem like, oh, he's not that good. Because that diminishes Volkanovski. Even though Volkanovski was in there and held his own, I had Islam winning. Before you guys freak out, I go back and watch my video on that one. I had Islam winning. I broke it down. I'm on the right side. Don't come at me. I had him winning. But that's what I'm saying, though. You can't just dismiss Islam because that means you're diminishing Volkanovski's accomplishment. No, talk up the victor. In this case, you're talking down the victor. But it's talk up the victor, talk up the loser, and you elevate both fighters by doing that. Don't be so one-sided in your narrative. Even if you have bias, you gotta come to some realization that somebody lands something. That a submission attempt, a strike, something that has to swing you back in the other direction, because that's ridiculous. All right, that is it. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end. Like I said before, if you like this stuff, subscribe to the channel so the next video is coming out. If you're looking for the UFC, that'll be the next 2 videos. I'm going to cover those there. And then I will cover the Jake Paul fight. I'm going to cover the Jake Paul boxing match tomorrow. So I appreciate y'all for stopping by. It means a lot to me. Hope you guys have an amazing week, and I love y'all.